Mr. Sergeant of Arms, invite the members into the chamber and close the doors. I hereby declare the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee now in session. Will the members please stand? With the visitors in gallery please stand and remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Whitson will introduce the chaplain of the day. Representative Whitson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to introduce our minister of the day, my pastor, Reverend Carlisle Jones of Franklin First United Methodist Church. Carlisle is an ordained deacon in our United Methodist Church. She is currently serving as our pastor of missions for our church and as the weekly pastor at our historic sanctuary where my wife Pam and I attend in downtown Franklin. Pastor Carlisle loves our state. She was born and raised here. She's a proud seventh generation Tennessean. She attended Battleground Academy in Franklin, earned her undergraduate degree in religion at Samford University, and later a Master of Arts in Religion at Memphis Theological Seminary. She is married to another pastor, Reverend Adam Jones of the Brentwood United Methodist Church. They are the proud parents of two children, Jane Bradley and AC, who is just 6 months old. I'm surprised you got here on time this morning. Pastor Carlisle serves a powerful message of hope and love for all of us during her weekly services, while routinely reminding my wife Pam that she is especially praying for her. I don't get that. So, I'm so grateful that she can join us today and share God's word with all my friends in this chamber. Ladies and gentlemen, my pastor, Reverend Carlisle Jones.
Thank you, Representative Whitson. I'm a clergy person. You are not clergy, but we have something in common. When I gather with my peers, we are often encouraged to remember our call, to remember who we are and why we do the work that we do. It is that we are called to this work. And so I want to ask you before this session to remember your call and to remember who you are. This is not a room of Republicans and Democrats, of men and women, of young and old, of black and white. This is a room of children of God. That is your first and foremost identity. That is why you are in this room. That is who God made you to be. And as you go about your work on this day and always, remember that you are a child of God, but every other person in this room is a child of God. Before they are a member of a party, before they are a voting individual, they are a child of God too. And not only are you created by God and called to this work, but regardless of what you might agree or disagree on in this space, you are in this room because you have a shared call that no one else can understand. You have been given this call to lead and serve the state of Tennessee, my home, the place where I'm choosing to raise my children, where I joyfully get to live with my family. So please remember your call. Remember how you got here. Remember why you are here. Remember who you are as a child of God. Remember that the person across the room from you, next to you, who you agree with or disagree with, is a child of God. And at the end of the day, everyone in this room that you serve with, you share the same call. You might go about it in different ways, but you are called to lead and serve the state of Tennessee. And we are grateful that you have responded to that call. And we, as your residents, are always lifting you up in our prayers. So if you would, let me pray for you during this session. Holy and mighty God, we come before you in a time when the world is plagued by division, plagued by judgment, plagued by everything that seeks to build barriers between us. But you have reminded us on this day, Lord, that you are the God who breaks down all barriers, that you are the God who can make a way forward when humans feel as if there is no way. So, Lord, remind each of us in this room that we were fearfully and wonderfully made by you, that the people that we are, that the gifts that we bring, that you created us just so that we might live into this calling you have for us. And Lord, I pray that our representatives would remember their identity. Before they are anything else, they are your children. They are loved. They are favored. They are pursued and fought for by the creator of the universe. And Lord, as each of us sit with that identity and worship and praise you for your goodness, let us extend that same love to our neighbor. That as these representatives speak with one another, debate with one another, plan and go back and forth, that it would all be done with a spirit of love, that it would all be done in light of our shared call. This work that you have called them to, that not many can understand, that might keep them up at night, wake them up early in the mornings, demand so much of them. Lord, give them what they need. Give them the words that they need. Give them patience when they need it. Give them rest. Give them energy. Give them zeal for this work that you have called them to. But ultimately, Lord, unite everyone in this space. In a time when division is threatening our sense of neighborly love, our sense of grace and peace, may your Spirit descend upon us and unite us. May we look upon one another as nothing more than children of God. May we not see that all our world tries to use as reasons to become enemies, but instead see each other as fellow leaders, as fellow children of God called to this same work. I pray that your Spirit would bring a word of peace, that peace would be felt in this place in moments of tension and in moments of rest, and that a spirit of trust would descend upon each individual. Trust that no matter what little moments might happen, no matter all the details, that your will be done. And Lord, I pray for our representatives that they might remember that regardless of what gets accomplished today or does not, what feels like a win, what feels like a loss, you are still God. And there is nothing that you, Lord, cannot do, that you hold this state in your hands, that you love these people, that this state represents your children, and therefore we are in your hands. So let that burden fall off of the shoulders of these representatives, and may they instead come to this work joyfully and gladly ready to serve you and respond to the call that you have made over their lives. We thank you, Lord, for their service, for their commitment, and pray your blessings upon this session today. All of this we pray in the holy name of the Lord. Amen.
Representative Whitson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Salute, pledge. Pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Roll call.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Speaker, 96 members present.
Let journal reflect that Representatives Love and Pearson are excused. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Welcoming and honoring.
Welcome and honoring Representative Alexander. You are recognized in the well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the Sergeant of Arms escort our guest into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, escort the guest to the well. Representative Alexander, you are recognized.
House members, it is my great honor to introduce to you today the FFA officers of this state. Future Farmers of America was founded by a group of young farmers in 1928, and we have a rich heritage. Their mission was to prepare future generations for the challenges of feeding a growing population. They taught us that agriculture is more than planting and harvesting. It is a science, it is a business, it is an art. Their motto is learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve. FFA makes a positive difference in the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agriculture education. These men and women will go on to be farmers, teachers, doctors, scientists, business owners, and more. It is my great honor to have the officers in front of you. I would like them to come up, introduce yourselves, tell us what town you're from and what office you hold, and also how you got into FFA.
You all are recognized.
Good morning. I'm Mary Beth Collette. I'm serving this year as the East Tennessee State Vice President. I'm from the David Crockett FFA chapter in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and I got my start in FFA through my family's farm. My teammates and I are incredibly honored to be here with you all today and would like to give a special thanks to Representative Alexander for all of her incredible support in our district and across the state. Thank you. I'm Ella Hasty, serving as this year's Tennessee FFA State President. I'm from the Stewart's Creek High School in Smyrna, Tennessee, and I got my start in FFA because of my agriculture educator taking me in and getting me involved in a contest freshman year. Thank you.
I'm Abigail Ham, and I'm serving as the West Tennessee State Vice President this year. I'm from Mumford, Tennessee in Tipton County, and I got my start in FFA through working at a local nursery.
I'm Delaney Turner, and I currently serve as the Middle Tennessee State Vice President. I'm from Lafayette, Tennessee, in the Macon County FFA chapter, and I got my start in FFA by an educator that inspired me to try out agriculture. My name is Gracie Plemons, and I'm currently serving as the state secretary. I'm from the Mount Juliet FFA chapter in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I got my start in FFA from my older brother, who was actually in the organization before me. I'm Lily Cagle. I'm currently serving as the Tennessee FFA State Sentinel. I'm from the Bledsoe County FFA chapter in Pikeville, Tennessee, and I got my start in FFA due to my family's Angus beef farm and a teacher who took me in.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah Harrell, the Tennessee FFA State Treasurer. I'm originally from the Oakland FFA chapter in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and I got my start in FFA thanks to both of my parents and my grandfather, who were involved in agriculture and FFA, and who encouraged me to get involved in FFA through our family farm.
I'm Maddie Rodell. I'm currently serving as the Tennessee FFA State Reporter. I'm originally from the Beach FFA chapter in Sumner County, Tennessee, and I got my start in agriculture through my mom, who loved plants and animals growing up as well. And on behalf of Tennessee FFA, we would like to thank everyone for hosting us here today and just creating such a welcoming environment for not only my teammates, but the members that you've seen around the Capitol today and up in the balconies. We cannot thank you enough for hosting us. And whether you come from an agriculture background or not, this industry creates traditions and memories for everyone across the state. So we thank you for continuing to show us your care and support for the industry that we all call home. Thank you once again.
I'd like to ask everyone that's an FFA member in the balcony, would you please rise so we can honor you for who you are and who you will become? All of these members would also along with me, would like to thank Chelsea Rose for being such a great leader of this organization and all she does. And Speaker, if you will join us here for a photo.
Representative Bolso, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the Sergeant at Arms escort our guests into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, escort the guests to the well. Representative Bolso, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I request that the clerk read the resolution.
Mr. Clerk, please read the resolution.
House Joint Resolution 865 by Representative Bolso and others, a resolution to honor and commend the Mrs. Tennessee America pageant, Director Bernadette McCann, and reigning queens Amy Rotero, Kayla Dressen, and Claire Portilla. Whereas it is fitting that the members of this General Assembly should pay tribute to those worthy organizations that encourage and passionately support excellence. And whereas the Mrs. America organization has a rich history dating back as far as 1938. And whereas the fastest growing pageant system of its kind in the world, the Ms. America pageant, has also emerged as one of the most important pageant events. It annually attracts thousands of women representing every segment of our society. And whereas Tennessee's premier Miss pageant, the Miss Tennessee America pageant, is the volunteer state's preliminary to the Mrs. America pageant, and Mrs. Tennessee annually represents America at its best state in the Mrs. American pageant. And whereas the Mrs. Tennessee America pageant is expertly led by Director Bernadette McCann, who previously assisted for 6 years with the Mrs. Florida pageant, where she had the pleasure of seeing both Miss America winners and Mrs. World winner. And whereas Mrs. Tennessee America pageant each year crowns 3 queens, Mrs. Tennessee America, Mrs. Tennessee American, and Miss Tennessee for America Strong. And whereas Mrs. Tennessee America 2023 is Amy Rotero of Brentwood, Mrs. Rotero has collaborated with local schools and hospitals to talk about the importance of health and wellness, and she is passionate about instilling self-confidence in the next generation and talking about practical ways to live a healthy lifestyle. And whereas Mrs. Tennessee America 2023 is Kayla Dressen of Murfreesboro, throughout her long reign, she enjoyed opportunities to serve at the Armed Forces Retirement Home in Washington, D.C., tour the White House, advocate for trade programs and jobs before elected leaders, and visit schools to talk about the importance of family and trade jobs. And whereas Miss Tennessee for America Strong 2023 is Claire Portilla of Chattanooga, Miss Portilla supports the Victoria's Voice Foundation with the America Pageant Organization and works closely with the Bethlehem Center and its 4 sister organizations across the state to help make children feel loved and seen. And whereas Mrs. Tennessee America Pageant is an exemplary organization that is wholly committed to the excellence in all its endeavors and should be specially recognized, now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of Tennessee, the Senate concurring, that we honor and commend the Mrs. Tennessee America Pageant Director Bernadette McCann and reigning queens Amy Rotero, Kayla Dressen, and Claire Portilla, extending to them our best wishes and much success in their future endeavors.
Representative Bolso, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today obviously is a very happy day in the Tennessee House of Representatives because we have the opportunity to welcome and honor so many of our great young ladies and young women here in Tennessee. So much of what we do here in this body is to preserve what's great about this state for the next generation. And this morning, the next generation is on display in force. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce to you 3 wonderfully talented and accomplished young ladies. Rather than my telling you about them, you're going to hear from them directly. First, Kayla Dressen. Second, Claire Portilla. And third, Amy Rotero.
Good morning, all. My name is Kayla Dreesen. I am Mrs. Tennessee American. During my year, and will continue to do so afterwards, I have gotten to go to bat for our families of Tennessee and being able to change the narrative on trade jobs across the country. I have been able, our unemployment rate and skills gaps are continuing to grow alongside our student loan debt of $1.7 trillion. And for every 5 tradesmen leaving the industry, only 3 are replacing them. Tennessee is the leading state in trade programs and jobs, but we still have a desperate need of more knowledge and ease of access for the next generation. I challenge you to join me in changing the narrative and bringing more opportunities to these kids, especially within low-income and rural areas. Thank you for your time, and I'm proud to be a Tennessean and American. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Claire Portilla. I'm your Miss Tennessee for America Strong, and it is an honor to be with you all this morning. If you haven't realized, you have a unique bunch of women surrounding you, and we all have different passions, and we come from different paths in life, but we all have a common goal to encourage the children in our state. It's been a blessing to serve our communities, me specifically, Chattanooga, working very closely with the Bethlehem Center and other community centers across the state of Tennessee. There are local leaders who are making big changes and big waves, and I hope to continue supporting them regardless of my crown or my title. Thank you guys so much for having us.
Good morning, all. I am Amy Rotero, Mrs. Tennessee America. It's been an honor to lead the growth and culture of our communities as Mrs. Tennessee. As a mom of 2 teenage girls and an 11-year-old boy, I echo the words of my sisters. We are the ones that can create lasting change for the next generation. The definition of innovate is to make changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products. Innovation will take Tennessee to a bolder, brighter future. Let's foster the spirit of innovation, expansion, and growth. Tennessee is where we want to be. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, will you please join us in the well for a photograph?
All right, welcome and honoring Representative Doggett. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we have with us the mayor of Lawrenceburg with us today, Mr. Blake Lay, up in the balcony. Help me welcome him with us. Representative Capley and I welcome him today. And also, Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize another constituent of mine, Miss Haley Parrott. She plays softball at the University of Tennessee Southern. She was named this week's NAIA Softball Player of the Week. She batted .700 during the week with 14 hits, 12 runs, 4 doubles, and 11 RBIs. So, fantastic job.
Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are several wonderful FFA clubs in the room, but if those from Sumner County can please rise for just a moment. If you're in an FFA club in Sumner County, please stand. And both got balconies here. We've got a couple. Yep, and I also want to specifically welcome Elias and Terry Mitchell here today from FFA, from another group. Y'all please make them feel welcome. Thank you, guys.
Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it's an honor to recognize Bledsoe County FFA. Ronnie Collier brought a group up today. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the day. Thanks.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to welcome Mike Swafford and the Cascade High School FFA from Bedford County. Please stand. And also I have Jenny Kate Pendergrass with Siegel High School FFA. Thank you all for coming. Welcome.
Representative Baum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to welcome the FFA from Rutherford County and Siegel High School. Miss Jenny Pendergrast is here with some of her students. Let's make them feel welcome.
Representative Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have two groups here. I'd first like to recognize the Crockett County FFA chapter. They're in our gallery somewhere. We'd like to welcome them. And also, on behalf of myself and Representative Grills, we have the Obion County Central FFA chapter here, I believe, in the gallery somewhere. So members, make them feel welcome. Thank you.
Representative Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. I have not had the privilege of being able to introduce my intern this year, and she's the hardest working intern and the #1 intern in the General Assembly this year. Mary Musa, would you please stand?
Representative Hale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, first of all, I want to welcome our congressman, Congressman Rose and his staff, Miss Lou, which is one of my constituents. So I want to welcome them here. And then also from the 40th District of DeKalb, Smith, Woodbury, and Gornsville, our FFA members that are here today, I want to make them welcome. Thank you.
Representative Carringer.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to wish my wonderful husband a very happy birthday today and to tell him I love him. And I know you all would all agree, bless him for putting up with me. So happy birthday, Mike. I hope you have a great day.
Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Speaker. Representative Hicks and I would like to welcome all the FFA members that are here from Washington County, Tennessee, from Daniel Boone and David Crockett. We welcome you. We're proud of you.
Representative Johnson and Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I would like to honor Alexei Navalny, who was incredibly brave and firmly committed to his values, fighting Putin's corruption and trying to liberate his country from totalitarian dictatorship. He was one of the most courageous freedom fighters in the world and was murdered by his political opponents because of it. We pray for his strength for his wife, Yulia, as she tries to carry on his work. A moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I wanted to honor everybody that has cell phone service right now, but if you don't, I'm going to give you a helpful hack. You can log on to the Wi-Fi, go to your settings, and make sure you enable Wi-Fi texting and calling, and you'll have service as long as you have Wi-Fi. So I'm not Gen Z, but I still know a thing or two about technology. So you're welcome.
Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you would please join me in welcoming in the gallery to our right, one of my constituents, Ryan Smothers, who is visiting us all the way from Memphis, and also want to wish him a happy birthday.
Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Up in the gallery today to my right, I have a shadow. Her name is Taylor Free, and Taylor is interested in politics, and so I have a couple of hours to convince her otherwise, but I'm thankful to have her here with us today. Taylor and her husband, Jesse, have a 9-month-old son, Cole. And remarkable about this couple is this. First of all, Taylor just finished serving 5 years in the United States Air Force active duty, and her husband just finished 5 years active duty in the U.S. Marine Corps. And so let's welcome Taylor and thank her and her husband for their service to our country.
Let the journal reflect Representative Terry is excused. Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I simply want to wish my wife a happy anniversary today and let her know that I love her. I'm sure she's watching, and wish my wife, Kim, a happy anniversary.
Representative Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
I have a few groups here today that I'd like to recognize. First of all, our Mumford High School FFA, if they're in the house, we welcome you. And we also had our Tipton Total Leadership class was here going back home today. And then we have a wonderful magazine that covers all of West Tennessee. It's called Cypress Magazine. And I'd like to welcome the photographer and the editor, Lucianne, and her daughter, Katie Schaffner. Thank you for being here.
Representative Dixie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is my mother-in-law's birthday. She would have been 80 years old today. I would say mother-in-law, I call her mother-in-love, because ever since I entered into their family, they always treated me like their son. So I want to wish Darlene Miles a happy 80th heavenly birthday. Thank you.
Representative Martin of Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, please welcome folks from West Carroll High School as well as Clarksburg High School from our district in attendance today. Thank you guys for coming.
Representative Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have a couple of birthdays I want to recognize. One is George Washington was born 293 years ago today. And the opposite of that, my intern, Macy Provance, is turning 22 today. So I wanted to wish them both happy birthday.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just if you get a chance, welcome the Lenoir City High School FFA here today.
Representative Towns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, to those of you that were here while our last speaker that retired, what's her name? Beth Harwell, I want you to come by the desk. We have something for you. I understand she was here yesterday. I wish I could have called her too. But come by the desk if you served with Beth Harwell. Okay, just kind of sashay around and at your leisure, and I got something for you. But Speaker, that includes you as well. Okay?
I'll sashay myself. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'd love to see it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to honor the multi-faith group of Tennesseans who have spoken up to condemn white nationalist hate in all forms, whether it's neo-Nazis or the Proud Boys or any group that is trying to ban history or ban the identity of people and erase them from our state. I think these Tennesseans are expecting a lot more from us, and they're asking for this body to act with actions and not just words to stop this trend of hatred and racial terror that we see rising. In East Nashville, we had KKK flyers dropped. In the neighborhoods there in Columbia, Tennessee, the KKK dropped flyers off as well. We saw neo-Nazis drop a banner off the bridge thanking the governor of our state. We've seen the Proud Boys come here during special session and trying to intimidate members who are trying to vote for common sense gun law. So we see an increase in hate. And I hope this body takes accountability for the way that they've contributed to this hate, the way they've promoted this hate and elevated this hate and given a platform of political power to these hate groups. And I hope that we repent for our role as a body in that action.
Representative Grills, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to welcome the Dyersburg Middle School FFA, the Dyersburg High School FFA, and Dyer County High School FFA. They're somewhere up there amongst the crowd. Y'all make them feel well.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I felt like I was the only one that didn't say anything, so I just want to stand up to say something. Thank you, sir.
Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this Saturday in Smyrna, or outside of Smyrna, we're doing a tour of the old Jefferson community, which is off the Central Valley Road right outside of Smyrna at the East Fork boat ramp. The old Jefferson community was once the county seat. The Trail of Tears come through this area. The Corps of Engineers had displaced everyone, purchased their property and moved them due to the damming of Percy Priest Lake. Samson Keeble, the first African-American lawmaker, was from out there. His bust is right 60 feet behind me here. He was Republican, just saying. Also, I want to thank our World War II veterans, the greatest generation that ever served. My father, he flew 24 bombing raids over Germany, dropping the bombs and knocking the hell out of some Nazis. Y'all give it up for the greatest generation and those that sacrificed for the freedoms that we have here today, folks. Give it up for the greatest generation.
Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I move previous question?
That would be a rule change. Representative Lafferty.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. 200 years ago, a fellow was born named Joshua Glover. Joshua Glover would later come to be an escaped slave. Under the Fugitive Slave Act, the law demanded that he be returned to his masters. A group of people in Wisconsin said, "Not on our watch." They broke that young man out of jail, they set him free, and they established the Republican Party. So thank you to the efforts of Joshua Glover and the thousands of people that set him free and the people that have carried the Republican name into the future. Thank you.
Next order, Mr. Clark.
Introduction to resolutions.
Lear Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all resolutions properly filed be introduced pursuant to Order Number 17 and placed on the consent calendar, referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Lear Lambert, you're recognized. Oh, next order, Mr. Clark.
City Joint Resolutions Congratulatory Memorializing.
Lear Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all Senate joint resolution congratulatory memorializing land on be placed on the consent calendar, pursuant to Order Number 17.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clark.
Resolutions lying over.
Lear Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all resolutions lying over be referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Next order, Mr. Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clark.
Introduction to bills.
Lear Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that House Bills 2,978 through 2,982 be introduced and passed on first consideration.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clark.
Senate bills on first consideration.
Lear Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that Senate Bills 1,639, 1,666, and 2,109 transmitted by the Senate be held on the desk pending third consideration of their companion House bills.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clark.
Senate bills on second consideration. House bills on second consideration.
Lear Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That House Bills 2,974 through 2,977 be passed on second consideration, be held on the desk referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clark.
Petitions and memorials, reports from standing committees, reports from select committees, calendars. Mr. Speaker, the House has a consent calendar.
Chairman Zachary, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move passage of the consent calendar on third and final consideration, keeping with Rule 50.
Gentleman moves passage of the consent calendar. Probably secretary, Mr. Clerk. Any objections been filed?
Mr. Speaker, item 8, House Bill 1885 has been objected to by Chairman Clemens. Item 33, House Joint Resolution 954 has been objected to by Chairman Faison.
All right. Anyone seeking recognition on the consent calendar? See none. We are voting on the consent calendar. All members in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
Having received a constitutional majority, I declare the consent calendar passed without objection and most research table. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a regular calendar.
Call the first bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 689 by Representative Hardaway, relative to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, it was previously considered and reset for today's regular calendar.
Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. Asking to roll that bill to the first available space on Thursday's calendar, the 29th.
Without objection, roll to February 29th on the next spot on the calendar. Without objection. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 2108 by Chairman Boyd, relative to energy.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 2108 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Boyd moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a cleanup bill to a piece of bipartisan energy legislation that we passed last year. It essentially condenses two different lists into one list. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Boyd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 2108, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 82, 10 nays.
House Bill 2108, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Most reconsider table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1828 by Representative Boso, relative to official state books.
Representative Bolso, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1828 on third and final consideration.
Representative Bolso moves passage, following seconded. Mr. Clerk, call the First Amendment.
House State Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Keesling, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does rewrite the bill, so we're going to defer to the sponsor for further explanation. We move to adopt, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Keesling moves adoption of Committee Amendment number 1, probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of Committee Amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Bolso, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a bill that seeks to add to our symbols in the Tennessee Blue Book. We've got state songs, state poems, state reptiles, but we have no official state books. And what we are doing this morning is to recognize the rich cultural, literary, and political heritage of our state, dating all the way back to its beginning on June 1st of 1796. As Chairman Farmer has already advised everyone, this happens to be the anniversary of the birthday of our first president, George Washington, whose farewell address to the American people is the very first book on the list that we seek to add via this bill as a Tennessee official book. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll renew my motion.
Representative Bolso renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This seems random, and it's not. It seems like a random amalgamation of books that maybe it's your personal favorite books. But George Washington did not come from Tennessee. He did not live in Tennessee. And that's the book you just mentioned is making a state book. It doesn't really make sense to me. We have great authors here, people like Ann Patchett and Cormac McCarthy, people who are literary giants in Tennessee. And it just seems like they would be a better fit since they're actually Tennesseans than some of the books you've listed. Can you explain also how you came up with the list? Are these your favorite books to read personally on your leisurely time? Like, how did you come up with this list of books?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, George Washington is on the list because he gave his farewell address in September of 1796, which obviously was just 3 months after Tennessee became a state. So his connection to the state of Tennessee is obviously very direct. But the list is something that recognizes the diversity of our citizenship over the course of its history from 1796 all the way up to the present. You know, we've got Pulitzer Prize winning authors from all over the state. We've got on the list, for example, Professor John Meacham, his work, American Lion, a biography of President Andrew Jackson. We've got James Agee from Knoxville, whose work, A Death in the Family, is a Pulitzer Prize winning work. We also have Robert Penn Warren from Clarksville, whose work, All the King's Men, also was a Pulitzer Prize winning work in 1947, later became an Academy Award winning motion picture film. So we've got books from Memphis, including Shelby Foote, The Civil War, a Narrative. We've got Alex Haley from Henning, Tennessee, in West Tennessee, book Roots on the list. We also, of course, have got Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors from Sevierville, Tennessee. So we've got books from Tennessee authors from across the state. They're Pulitzer Prize winning works. They're works that have been recognized as having significant literary merit over the course of a very long time.
Representative Jones.
So I think that's a yes. These are your favorite books to read in your leisure time. Thank you. You said that these are Pulitzer Prize winners from Tennessee. One of the books listed is a Bible. Did the author of the Bible come from Tennessee?
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, but the Aiken Bible is obviously a Bible that's printed here in Tennessee. 3 of the remaining original 5 copies of that Bible are here in Tennessee. It's the only Bible that the Continental Congress, ever authorized the printing of back on September the 12th of 1782. And it dovetails nicely with George Washington's farewell address to the American people, where he recognized religion and morality as our 2, quote, indispensable supports of our political prosperity. The fact that Congress recognized the printing of the Aiken Bible is a historical fact. It's not a devotional fact. So it fits nicely into our country's founding. It obviously fits nicely with Alexis de Tocqueville's work, Democracy in America, which, building on George Washington's work, his farewell address to the American people, wrote that all society depends, in some part at least, on a set of shared beliefs. And the Aiken Bible was on there for that reason.
Representative Jones.
So that answer is also no. Thank you so much, Representative Bolso. So again, we just have a random amalgamation of books that you want to put as our state books that you said they represent the diversity of Tennessee. Only one author is Black. Only one author is a woman. So this is not diversity. This is just you trying to promote a certain narrative and a certain dominant narrative of what Tennesseans should be. There's so many great authors. I think that all of our districts should have a say on what is going to be the state books. But again, we know this is going to pass. We know that this is just some type of grandstanding. Good luck on that. But I think that it's wrong that we are putting these books here that do not represent Tennessee values, things like the Civil War narrative, things like an Aiken Bible. We have people of all faiths represented in this state, and yet we're trying to slip in that as a state book, the Bible as a state book. That's what this is really about. And so also one of the books listed is Roots. I hope you watched the movie or read the book, and you'll see that that's a book about critical race theory. It's about enslavement. It's about a family being terrorized by slavery and Jim Crow. So that's a book that I think is important for Tennesseans to read during this Black History Month, is Roots by Alex Haley. I thank you for promoting critical race theory in our state, because it's really important that our students and Tennesseans know that there is a history of systemic racism in our state and in this nation. So thank you for adding that book and making sure that we all vote to support critical race theory here in Tennessee.
Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The beauty of this list, members, is that it's actually a start. It's not an ending place. Later this morning, we're likely to add to our official state songs when Representative Powell presents his bill. So this is a start. It's not a place to end. The books that we have here are all classics. They're Pulitzer Prize winning novels. They're accounts of presidential biography of Andrew Jackson. And so this is not a place that I think we end. This is a place where we start a conversation about the importance of reading in Tennessee, and particularly works that are written by Tennesseans. With regard to Alex Haley, he fits perfectly on the list, obviously, because his work in 1976, Roots, is probably the most read work ever by Tennessean. And the best part of that work, to me, is the very first page, where Alex Haley, after his family has been enslaved by the country for so long, actually dedicated Roots, not to a member of his family. He dedicated it as a birthday offering to my country. So he actually wrote that book and dedicated it to his country, the United States of America, which is something that should bring us all together. And I'll close in response to the representative's comments by going back to President Abraham Lincoln, who in a period of 4 years, gave 3 of the most famous and lasting speeches in our American history. In his initial inaugural address in 1861, he recognized, even though 5 states had seceded, that, quote, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies." He was bringing people together. That's what this entire initiative is designed to do, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? I see one hand. We're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 1828 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 73, 18 nays, 4 present, not voted.
House Bill 1828, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1923 by Representative Butler relative to dual enrollment.
Representative Butler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1923 on third and final consideration.
Representative Butler moves passage. Bobby second. Mr. Clerk, any amendment's been filed.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Butler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is simple. It's going to prioritize our TCAT students that are dual enrolled in high school to be moved to the very top of the list to continue on with that certification or that education program in TCAT. And too many times we've had students that have not finished or continued on with their education because seats weren't available. And while we've invested almost $1 billion in TCATs, this will ensure that Tennessee is getting a better return on their investment in our students. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Butler renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1923 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays.
House Bill 1923, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion for reconsider is tabled. Representative Sherrill, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know I'm out of order. We have a group from White County FFA that's come in. They was tied up in traffic. We'd just like to take just a minute and welcome them, if you would, please, up here in the gallery. Thank you.
Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1944 by Chairman Carr and others relative to motor vehicles.
Chairman Carr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1944 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Carr moves passage. Bobby second. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Carr, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill has to do with what we call, this more or less named over in Carolina as the Carolina Squat. Cars have been coming in and they've been jacking their front fenders up so high that they can't see over the fender to drive. And we've had several accidents like that in Sevier County. So if your front fender is 4 inches higher than your back fender, you are subject to a fine. And that is what the bill is about.
Chairman Carr, you renew your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Chairman Carr renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is does the car have to permanently be in that position, or can it adjust itself via hydraulics to be in that position? Does it prohibit both?
Chairman Carr.
No, sir. As long as it's on the road, or if it can adjust itself down and be below 4 inches, then it would be fine.
Chairman Clemens.
So this would apply to cars that are both permanently in that position in violation of the statute, as well as any that would move into that position via hydraulics.
Chairman Carr.
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Any further discussion? Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Chairman, thank you for this bill. We had some discussion on this in transportation. It's a good bill. And one thing that was mentioned was they jack these cars up so high they can only see the sky, and they're trying to drive with a camera. That's just totally unsafe and should not be allowed on the streets. So I appreciate the bill.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative, based on the question Chairman Clemens asked, if I was in a parade and was going up and down and doing the motions like that, would that be in violation as well?
Chairman Carr.
If your car front fender is, if the front fender is higher than 4 inches than the back fender, you would be in violation.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lowell. Oh, sorry, Representative Russell. My bad.
I've been called worse. But thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the sponsor, I just want to thank you for this legislation. I worked many crashes over my law enforcement career, and modified vehicles, whether it be causing distraction of line of sight or altered height, you know, it messes up the absorption of the bumper whenever you start moving that thing up and down. And injuries are caused because the bumper's not working right. So thank you for that. It's going to keep people safe and Tennessee safer. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1944, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 84, 7 nays, 1 present, not voting.
House Bill 1944 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The most reconsidered table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1655 by Chairman Sapiki and others relative to mathematics instruction. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Chairman Sapiki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1712.
Chairman Sapiki moves to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1712. Properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Chairman Sapiki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what this bill does is task the Department of Education to come up with a committee of Tennessee teachers and Tennessee experts to look at how we are going to deliver mathematics to our students moving forward. This report will come back to the General Assembly with the next group that comes through, and then they will make recommendations on how we're going to explain professional development and teaching of mathematics to our students. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Sapiki.
I move passage of Senate Bill 1712 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Sapiki moves passage of Senate Bill 1712 on third and final consideration. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment Number 1, Mr. Speaker, same as Senate Amendment Number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as Senate amendment, so I move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Sapiki, you're recognized.
I renew my motion.
Chairman Sapiki renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1712, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, no nays.
Senate Bill 1712, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The most reconsidered table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1630 by Chairman Sapiki relative to artificial intelligence. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Chairman Sapiki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1711.
Chairman Sapiki moves to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1711, probably second without objection. So ordered. Chairman Sapiki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 1711 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Sapiki moves passage of Senate Bill 1711 on third and final consideration. Probably second. Ms. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment Number 1, Mr. Speaker, it's the same as Senate Amendment Number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as Senate amendment, so I move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Sapiki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Artificial intelligence is here, ladies and gentlemen. And what this bill does is task our colleges and universities and our K-12 and charter schools to come up with an artificial intelligence plan on how they're going to allow our professors, our teachers, and our students to use and not use artificial intelligence. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Sapiki renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1711, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Bain, aye. There we go. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, no nays, 1 present, unvoted.
Senate Bill 1711, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The most reconsidered table. Call up next bill. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 701 by Chairman Doggett and others relative to certain sexual offenses.
Chairman Doggett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 701 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Doggett moves passage, probably second. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Finance, Ways and Means Committee Amendment Number 1.
Chair Lady Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt House Amendment Number 1 and defer to the sponsor for an explanation.
Charlie Hazelwood moves adoption of amendment number 1, probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Doggett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill simply adds continuous sexual abuse of a child to the list of offenses that require the defendant be placed on community supervision for life. And with that, I renew my motion.
Chairman Doggett renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 701 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, no nays.
House Bill 701, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reads serious table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1639 by Chairman Moon, relative to medical records.
Chairman Moon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1639 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Moon moves passage, probably second. Mr. Clerk, call up first amendment.
House Health Committee Amendment number 1.
Vice Chairman Leatherwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill, and I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for further explanation.
Vice Chairman Leatherwood moves adoption of committee amendment number 1, probably second. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. It is adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Moon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1639 as amended would allow the deceased patient's hospital medical records to be released to their next of kin by using language from Title 63 to be placed in Title 68. This bill would help the family members in their time of loss from added delay and expense while attempting to obtain these records. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Moon renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1639 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
House Bill 1639 having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1649 by Representative McCalman, relative to elections.
Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1649 on third and final consideration.
Representative McCalman moves passage, probably second. Mr. Clerk, any amendment's been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill simply adds Super Tuesday, the March 5th presidential primary, to the code that requires schools to be closed, just as we do for the general election if the County Election Commission uses our school systems for polling places. And with that, I renew my motion.
Representative McCalman renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. To the sponsor, is this for individual schools or the LEA?
Representative McCalman.
Representative Hardaway, this would be for the LEA. Currently, for the general election in November, state law requires if the County Election Commission uses a school building or multiple school buildings, that district, the LEA must be closed on that date. This would operate exactly the same way for the March 5th primary.
Representative Hardaway.
Repeat that one more time, sir.
Representative McCalman.
It would treat the March 5th primary the same as we do for the general election. Currently, if the election commission, County Election Commission uses the school system for polling places, be it one location or multiple locations, state law requires the LEA to be closed on that November general election. This would just make it apply to the March 5th presidential primary as well.
Representative Hardaway.
And that's been in statute for how long?
Representative McCalman.
I'm not sure how long it has been state law. This was brought to me by a teacher in my district and spoken to the state election commission. They're on board with it. My school board loved the idea about it, and I understand multiple other school systems have been in favor of it as well. We currently live in a world where we have to be concerned at who has access to our schools. We close in November. We should close in March as well.
Representative Hardaway.
All right, and this would take effect immediately or next election or the November election? When will the bill take effect?
Representative McCalman.
It would take effect upon governor's signature, sir.
Representative Hardaway.
Okay, I'm not sure about this one, sponsor, but thank you for engaging.
Representative Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to bring a little clarity to the issue, I sponsored the legislation that created the time when days would be out of school, when elections were held there. It was before the presidential primary was set in March. So now we're just getting the presidential primary in line with the other elections that we have across the state of Tennessee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the gentleman who sponsors the bill.
Representative McCalman.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can also comment. It is a good bill because we pass a lot of laws to protect our children, which means doors at schools have to be locked so the general public cannot get in during school hours. An election, we have federal laws that you can't deny someone the right to vote if there's a door locked and things like that. So you could be sued over denying someone the right to get in the building to vote if, for example, they came in other than if a school doesn't have just that one door for them to come in. So this is protection of our children. So thank you very much.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1649, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays.
House Bill 1649 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1613 by Representative Powell and others relative to state songs.
Representative Powell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1613 on third and final consideration.
Representative Powell moves passage. Following seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Powell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1958, a 13-year-old Tennessean, Brenda Lee, recorded Rockin' Round the Christmas Tree here in our state of Tennessee. It took 65 years, but this legendary song made it to the top 100, number one, the Billboard 100 list for the top holiday song this past November 2023, where it stayed for 3 weeks. It eclipsed Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is. Brenda Lee is a Tennessee legend. She has many, many honors that she's accomplished over the years. She is the first woman to be enshrined in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Country Music Hall of Fame. Also, the 65-year record when Brenda Lee was 79 was the longest time from a song being released until a song became the number one song. So at 79, she also became the oldest person, beating both Cher and Mariah Carey, to have a number one hit. So this piece of legislation designates Rock Around the Christmas Tree as the official holiday song of the state. With that, I renew my motion.
Representative Powell renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for bringing this. And Brenda Lee has quite a few ties to Sumner County, and I'm a co-sponsor. But really, the only question that I have, we came in together 12 years ago, and I know you have a lot of skills and talents. Could you sing us a few verses of the song just so we know?
Representative Powell.
So first of all, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to mention my colleague, Representative Whitson. He actually grew up in Flat Rock, which is what we affectionately call a portion of our district here in Nashville that I represent and have represented, where Brenda Lee lived. So he actually grew up with Brenda Lee. And I will say that the song in the bill language actually designates Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. So I think we do disservice and dishonor if I was to sing this song. And as the great American poet and lyricist MC Hammer said, you can't touch this. So I'm not touching it.
I think we all concur with that. Representative Mitchell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This summer I was able to attend the induction of Ringo Starr into the Musicians Hall of Fame here in Nashville. And Brenda Lee inducted Ringo into that hall. During that ceremony, it was let known that the Beatles opened up for Brenda Lee. So that's how big Brenda Lee was at the time. So I just wanted to have that known to the General Assembly. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1613, vote aye. As the bell rings, those opposed, vote no. Has everyone voted? Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays, one present not voting.
House Bill 1613, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reads serious table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1597 by Representative Raper relative to state symbols. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill's on the desk.
Representative Raper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1573.
Representative Raper moves to substitute and conform Senate Bill 1573, probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Raper, you're recognized.
I move the passage of Senate Bill 1573 on third and final consideration.
Representative Raper moves passage of Senate Bill 1573 on third and final consideration, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
House State Government Committee Amendment number 1. Mr. Speaker, it's contained in Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Keisling, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment number 1 does rewrite the bill. The only change versus the bill as filed is to designate hot slaw as an official state food rather than the official state food. Mr. Speaker, we move to adopt.
Chairman Keisling.
My apology, we move to withdraw.
All right, without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Raper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1597 is connected to House Bill 1598 with the goal being to make Cleveland, Tennessee, the hot saw capital of the state of Tennessee. To do this constitutionally, we must run HB 1597 to make hot saw an official food, not the state food. So some examples could be someone could run a bill from Memphis declaring it the barbecue capital, Nashville as hot chicken capital, or Collegedale, for example, the Little Debbie capital. This is part of Cleveland's history, such as the creation of Mountain Dew in the historical Fort Johnson City, and moon pies and crystals in Chattanooga. Those are just some of many examples we have. Tennessee is blessed with many unique stories involving food and beverages. We have a task of keeping those historical events alive for the future. To refresh your memory, last year we voted to make pumpkin pie an official pie of the state of Tennessee by one of my comrades. And so I'm asking you, please help me preserve history by making hot saw an official food of the state of Tennessee. I renew my motion.
Representative Raper renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the sponsor, I will be voting in favor of this. My only complaint after tasting it the other day, there were no pinto beans to go with it, no hot dogs. I'm not sure we all have a fair assessment of this hot slaw, but I'll be supporting it. But I wanted to make that known, sir.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you to the sponsor for recognizing that Memphis is the capital of barbecue. All right. I don't know, I didn't see it in the bill. Is a recipe in here?
Representative Raper.
First of all, no, sir, the recipe is secret. I don't even know it, but I wanted to take off on the first comment you made. I feel like that if we took the barbecue from Memphis or hot chicken from Nashville and combined it with hot slaw, you've got an unpenetratable force. It'd be like wearing a Superman costume. So anyway, so thank you, Representative Hardaway.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. I wasn't looking for that. You know, we serious about our barbecue. We don't bring comic characters into the discussion. But the other part I'm curious about, and Leader Lambert brought this to our attention, is this coleslaw best served hot or room temperature?
Representative Raper.
It's supposed to be served cold, and I did have it on ice that day. Leader Lambert, after he got food poisoning, he had a derogatory comment about it.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm looking forward to having the same support next year when we come and bring the bill.
Representative Hardaway, I think you still had time. Go ahead.
That makes our Memphis barbecue one of the favorite foods of Tennessee.
Representative Doggett. Passes. Representative Hemmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Davis County delegation, I have to issue a warning that hot slaw should not be combined with Nashville hot chicken. Thank you.
Representative Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. Any objection? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1573, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays, two present, unvoted.
Senate Bill 1573, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion for consideration table. Representative Hastings, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know I'm out of order, but my FFA group just got in the building. I just wish you would help me welcome the Perry County FFA group up to my left.
Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1897 by Chairman Rudd, relative to election officials.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of HB 1897 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Rudd moves passage, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Local Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment is introduced a new subsection stipulating that an administrator rescued from official duties is ineligible to receive compensation for the duration of the period. To move to adopt.
Chairman Crawford moves adoption of committee amendment number 1, probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendment.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does is currently we have a state law that all county election commissioners, if they have a spouse or immediate family member that's on the ballot, they have to recuse themselves for that 30-day period so they're not voting on their family members' certification. This would simply apply the same ethical standards to the election administrator that is applied to the county election commission.
that if they have a spouse or immediate family member on the ballot, they can't oversee that election certification. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Rudd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the sponsor, I raised my hand on the amendment. I want to think I heard you fix that. Does the amendment still say that the election commissioner have to not get paid? I don't care about them recusing. So I think you got a good bill, but the other day, my issue was that we not pay those people. So do they get paid now?
Chairman Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, that's what the Director of Elections wanted, so that the same standards are applied. If we actually paid the administrator during that brief period, we would, number one, defeat the purpose of the bill. Number two, it would cause an undue burden financially to the County Election Commission because they'd have to appoint a temporary replacement and pay two people twice.
Representative Shaw.
I'm trying to understand you, so help me understand. Does the election commissioner get paid while they off duty, or do they get paid?
Chairman Rudd.
No, I just stated, no, they do not during that period because they're not working.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you. And I appreciate your bill, and I personally think it's a good bill, but I don't want to punish my election commissioner because he or she has a relative running for office. I just think they ought to get paid while they're off duty. And for that reason, I can't support the legislation because you are taking these people, you're taking their livelihood away from them. I mean, we don't know how long this is going to last, so I just don't think that's fair. And I would highly appreciate if we could just keep paying them and do what you want to do with the bill. But I just want to get that on record. I can't support it this way.
Chairman Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Again, we're just applying the same standards that currently exist for the County Election Commission. They're also still employees, so they're receiving their benefits. Just for that brief period of certification, they're not receiving a salary because we would be forcing the counties to pay double. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So along those same lines, you say that they're receiving their benefits. How are they going to pay for their health insurance and pension and 401k during this time?
Chairman Rudd.
As I said earlier, they still have their same benefits as all other employees. They're just not making money for that brief period of time during the certification of the election. And unfortunately, there's no other way to do this. Like, if no one's ever complained about the election commission members going through the same thing, this was the only way to adapt this. We can't reward administrator for their spouse, say a spouse running on the ballot. There's no other way to handle this. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I disagree. There are several other ways to handle it, but one clear distinction between the election commissioner and the director of elections is that election commission is the part-time job. They are getting their money to pay their benefits and their health insurance and take care of their families through their job. This particular bill is directed at the person whose full-time employment is to make sure that we have safe and secure elections in that particular county. And what you're doing is because his relative wants to further their, public service, this bill penalizes, not just penalizes, it cripples a full-time employed person. So again, how are they, if I'm an election commissioner that's a single dad, and I have two children and one maybe has some health issues, how am I going to pay? And this is a primary and general. So for potentially 6 months to a year, how am I going to pay the bills that are coming before me during this time because a relative wanted to run for office?
Chairman Rudd.
Again, I don't know where you come up with 6 months to a year. The certification process does not take that long. The election process of where they're on the ballot and the election is being carried out and the certification process is being conducted does not last 6 months to a year.
again, this is a standard practice throughout government. I do not really see a way around that. I appreciate your objections to the bill, but due to ethical standards, we need to apply the same standards that we're applying to the County Election Commission that approves the certification process as we do to the administrator. And again, I have not received one single phone call from any election administrator in this state objecting to this. And by the way, Mr. McKenzie, this has only popped up once in the history of Tennessee that I'm aware of recently. It's only been in one county, which has caused a problem, and that's why they brought this to me. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that's one problem in all of these years that we've been this great state. So I would hate to pass a law because of one issue. And my concern would be, wouldn't it be better for that person to just recuse themselves, as we do, as locally elected people do, and announce, my spouse, my relative is running for road superintendent, county commission, and I have a staff, and I will take my hands off of that particular election and not have anything to do with that. They publicly announce what their conflict is, and they continue to do their job because their job is way bigger than this one particular election. Wouldn't that be a better solution?
Chairman Rudd.
In my opinion, no. Again, we're forcing the county to spend money that we're not willing to spend ourselves. So, no, sir. And with that, I renew my motion, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, sponsor. Does this also apply to the state election commissioner?
Chairman Rudd.
I don't know what rules currently are applying to the state election commission. Since we only address this at the county level, I don't know if they already have ethics guidelines of what they can and cannot participate in. So I would assume this is already addressed at the state level. This was only brought to me at the county level.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. To the sponsor, who's responsible for identifying the relationship? Is it the candidate or is it the commissioner or / administrator?
Chairman Rudd.
The person who's in charge of the county election commissions is the state election commission and commissioner at the state election commissioner in charge of that area. So they would be the one that would be enforcing this, I would assume. Also, the Secretary of State's office that are over our elections, and the administrators report directly to the coordinator of elections and the Secretary of State. I would assume that the only person that's empowered to appoint a election administrator is two people, the county election commission itself and the state election commissioner over that area. That's who appoints the temporary replacements of county election commissioners when they have to recuse themselves.
Representative Hardaway.
And the penalties?
Representative Hardaway.
The penalties for violating the statute?
Chairman Rudd.
Well, I don't know of any penalties for violating the statute. The statute would say, like it does currently, they're automatically removed like it is currently at the county election commission. So I don't know of any penalties. They would just simply be removed.
Representative Hardaway.
So if it's unintentional and it happens, there's no civil or criminal penalties to go with this?
Representative Hardaway.
Rudd.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chairman Rudd.
Whatever's currently in code, as far as I know, there's none in my bill. I don't know if there's already in code now. It's like so many of our election laws and other laws, the state election commission is in charge of certain things. And if it's missed and it went through, I don't think there'd be any punishment. I don't know of any. I don't know of any instances, since this would be the same practice as the county election commission is currently. for their members. I don't know of any of them that's missed not being appointed, but again, that would be up to the State Election Commission.
Representative Hardaway.
Last question. This would not automatically void an election should this occur and not be detected until after the election is held.
Chairman Rudd.
No.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you. Thank you, sponsor. Thank you, Speaker.
Chairman Rudd.
So we can get questions codified, I move to roll the bill till the bottom of the calendar Monday.
All right, without objection, roll to the bottom of Monday's calendar. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 2121 by Chairman Rudd, relative to convention delegates.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of HB 2121 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Rudd moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does is currently our current practice, the current law and our current practice are not in line with one another. When presidential candidates file, the party appoints delegates, and the current law states they have to be appointed at the same time. Well, the presidential candidates on either party do not always have all those delegates in hand. So the Secretary of State's office has always given them 30 days to collect these names. And this would simply put into practice that give them an extra 30 days for the presidential candidates to get their delegates appointed, the state parties, and this codifies existing practices. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Rudd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Oh, Representative Powell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the sponsor. I, along with many others in our state, are often feel like by the time we get to vote in these presidential primaries, these other states that are in front of us have already made up their voting, and a lot of these candidates have already dropped out. So if we pass this, would it have to be in future years? If we were ever able to move our primary up, would we need to come back and adjust this, or will this make it so that that's not going to impact that? We'd still be able to look at moving our primary presidential election up.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Well, this is current law. If we ever moved our primaries up, we would change all the law at that same time. The current law that has our primary set at this date, this would bring us into practice of current law. So if we ever change that law, this would be changed along with it.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 2121, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 92, no nays.
House Bill 2021, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Let the journal reflect Representatives Travis and Dixie are excused. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 2058 by Representative Hicks of Washington, relative to course requirements.
Representative Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 2058 on third and final consideration.
Representative Hicks moves passage following second. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Education Instruction Committee Amendment number 1.
Chair Lady Moody, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill. Move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for further explanation.
Chair Lady Moody moves adoption of Committee Amendment number 1, probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted the next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2058 requires the Department of Education, the State Board of Education, and Higher Ed to conduct a study to identify math courses that may be a substitute for Algebra 2 for the purpose of satisfying graduation requirements. And this report must be submitted by January 31, 1 of 2025. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hicks renews his motion. Let the journal reflect. Speaker Pro Tem Marsh is excused. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Raper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to say as a former math teacher that I think this is a great bill because it's giving options to our VOTEC students that they haven't had before. And there are so many few that continue on and get their, not only their diploma, but their certification. So thank you for running this bill. This is a great one.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 2058 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has everyone voted? Does anyone wish to change their vote? Hakeem, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91 nay.
House Bill 2058 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Most reconsidered table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 2059 by Representative Hicks of Washington relative to work-based learning.
Representative Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 2059 on third and final consideration.
Representative Hicks moves passage. Probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for further explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption of amendment, committee amendment number 1. Probably second. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Be adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Hicks, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2059 increases the number of available credit hours for work-based learning programs from a maximum of 3 to a maximum of 6 hours. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hicks renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 2059 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 89, no nays.
House Bill 2059 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Most reconsidered is tabled. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1681 by Representative Stevens and others relative to the Advisory Board for Community-Based Vocational Rehabilitation Services. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Stevens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 2077.
Representative Stevens moves substitute and conform to Senate Bill 2077 without objection. So ordered. Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 2077 on third and final consideration.
Representative Stevens moves passage of Senate Bill 2077 on third and final consideration. By second, Mr. Clerk, call the First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Stevens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an administration bill that eliminates the State Advisory Board for Community-Based Vocational Rehabilitation Services. This board is duplicative of work being done by the gubernatorially appointed State Rehabilitation Council. And this elimination of this board will provide clarity to our stakeholders and customers. So with that, I renew my motion.
Representative Stevens renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 2077, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Cochran, aye. Grills, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 78, 12 nays.
Senate Bill 2077 have received constitutional majority. Everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsidered is tabled. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 2087 by Representative Bricken and others relative to financial institutions. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Bricken, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 2072.
Representative Bricken moves substitute and conform Senate Bill 2072 without objection. So ordered. Representative Bricken, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 2072 on third and final consideration.
Representative Bricken moves passage of Senate Bill 2072 on third and final consideration. By second, Mr. Clerk, call the First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Bricken, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 2072 basically is brought to us by the Department of Financial Institutions. It does several things, but primarily It stabilizes and revises the assessment fees the commissioner and the department charges banks and trust companies in Tennessee. It raises the appraisal amounts on foreclosed property of banks to $500,000, and it gives the commissioners latitude in allowing companies to use the word trust in their names. With that, I'll renew my motion.
Representative Bricken renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 2072, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Grills aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays.
Senate Bill 2072, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The motion reconsider is taken. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1733 by Leader Lamberth and others relative to state entities.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1733 on third and final consideration.
Leader Lamberth moves passage. Probably second. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
House State Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Keesling, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does rewrite the bill, so we will defer to the leader for the sponsor or to further explanation. We move to adopt.
Chairman Keesling moves adoption of committee amendment number 1. Probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is a very clear and concise bill. We will not pay hackers for our own data. So if some hacker out there anywhere in the world wants to try to ransom our data is going to be backed up and protected, and you will not get paid if you try to hijack the people of Tennessee. With that, I renew my motion.
Leader Lamberth renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for this legislation. What happens if certainly not advocating to pay any ransom, but what happens if the data of the state is compromised and we don't have that access to that backup? What's the plan?
Leader Lamberth.
So the other part of this bill is there was a lot of conversations with many different departments within state government on exactly what their redundancy and backup systems are. And this has forced more of a conversation on that to ensure that all of our data is secure. So the goal is not only to not pay hackers, but to make sure that a hacker couldn't get in and just either hijack or destroy our data for the sheer joy of trying to wreak havoc within our systems. And so it's not really a direct part of this bill, but indirectly, it forces all of our departments to really have data that's siloed off, that is independently backed up, so that no hacker could actually be able to get our data and independent of anything else, really just kind of wreak havoc in our systems.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Are you comfortable, are we comfortable that the state of Tennessee is investing sufficient resources and has the technology sufficient to do just that? And we're not codifying ourselves into a corner with no way of protecting the data. Are you comfortable that our state is making that sufficient investment and is making those technological strides to protect our data to not put us in that position?
Leader Lamberth.
Yes, definitely. And I will say in 2023, ransomware gangs collected a record of about $1.1 billion, mostly from private companies that weren't doing enough. And so those are the exact same conversations I've had with the highest levels of the executive branch to say, look, make sure we are doing everything possible and everything reasonable that we can to not leave us open to any kind of attack. So I believe they have the resources that are necessary. It just had to be forced as a conversation.
Any further discussion? Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to call it a point of clarity for me. I understand the redundancy and all of that, but as a backup or just in case, is there a form of insurance that we can acquire if indeed these people find a way in? Sometimes people like a dare, and they might interpret our discussion today as a dare. And I just wondered if we had any kind of insurance backup.
Leader Lamberth.
So a couple of years ago, we set aside several $1 million to self-insure the state of Tennessee. We had third-party vendors that were insuring us, and unfortunately, there are a number of breaches that occur. Now, not necessarily ransomware, but breaches. And anytime there's a breach of that nature, if your data has been stolen, several months ago, you may have gotten a notice that if you're part of TCRS, there was a breach within that system. They sent out a notice notifying folks there was a breach. And on top of that, they provided certain identity theft protections to the individuals whose data had been breached. So we have all of that in place. And so it's not a dare, it is a declaration. There's no sense hijacking our data because you will never get paid. We will make up the difference. We will recreate our systems. We will have that data backed up somewhere else. It's not a dare. It will just be simply useless to try to hack into the state of Tennessee and hold our data ransom because we're not going to pay. And so there would have already been a pretty difficult process for the state to pay a ransom anyways. That would have been, I mean, there's not a clear process on how to do that. And we have avoided what other states have seen on large ransomware attacks thus far. So again, and I like the way you say it. I mean, it's definitely not a dare. It's just a declaration. We're not going to pay for our own data. We're going to back it up. We're going to keep it secure. We're just not paying it. But we do have those additional security protections in place for individuals whose data has been stolen, because that happens, unfortunately, every day. It's not ransomware, but they're taking people's social security numbers, their date of birth, and name. And when that happens, we're self-insured to be able to protect their identity.
Representative King. All right, very nice. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1733 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 92, no nays.
House Bill 1733 having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The most reconsidered is tabled. Representative Williams, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recognize that I'm out of order, but we do have the FFA group from Upperman High School here in Baxter, Tennessee, which is from Putnam County. I hope you guys make them feel welcome. Thank you.
Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1921 by Leader Lamberth, relative to the county mayor.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move passage of House Bill 1921 on third and final consideration.
Leader Lamberth, moves passage, probably second. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, very simple, straightforward bill. There is a question as to whether or not the local mayor can speak to the county commissioner about matters that are before the county commission. This clarifies it and says, yes, the county mayor can speak to those individuals, and it's not a violation of the Sunshine Law. Obviously, the county commissioners cannot speak to one another, but the county mayor could speak to them. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Leader Lamberth renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1921, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 84, 8 nays.
House Bill 1921, having received constitutional majority, everybody declare it passed without objection. Motion reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1683 by Representative Burkhart and others, relative to deleting reference to repealed federal law.
Representative Burkhart, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1683 on third and final consideration.
Representative Burkhart moves passage, probably second. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Burkhart, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does, simply a cleanup bill, getting Tennessee in line with the federal government. We removed the data waiver requirement for prescribing products containing the medication buprenorphine, and this treatment, and this is a law that's finally just getting in line with the federal law, and I'll try to answer any questions.
Representative Burkhart, you renew your motion. Oh, very good. Representative Burkhart renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Powell.
Thank you to the sponsor. I'm just curious, could you tell us what some of the dangers and consequences or ways this is abused?
This is just a.
Representative Burkhart, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lots of, this was a data thing, and that was put together by having some doctors who could prescribe this particular bill. And the federal law took it back out in December of 22. And then we're just simply getting in line with the federal law.
Representative Powell. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just trying to get a better understanding of the need for this legislation and exactly what it's doing.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're just simply getting in line with the federal, because there's been some confusion. You know, the department has asked us to do this because it's conflicting laws, and they're trying to just get in line, make sure Tennessee is lined up with the federal law.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1683, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to pass? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays.
House Bill 1683 having received a constitutional majority, hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reads serious table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 755 by Chairman Boyd, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Dr. Sherry Robertson of Wilson County to the State Textbook Instructional Materials Quality Commission. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Joint Resolutions on the desk.
Representative Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 835 for HJR 755.
Representative Boyd moves to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 835 for House Joint Resolution 755. Probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur in Senate Joint Resolution 835.
Representative Boyd moves to concur. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative Boyd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 835, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Take the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Ayes 91, no nays.
Senate Joint Resolution 835 having received constitutional majority, everybody declare it concurred in without objection. Most read serious table. Let the journal reflect. Representative Sparks is excused. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 767 by Chairman White and others, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Christine P. Richards to the Public Charter School Commission. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Joint Resolutions on the desk.
Representative White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 832 for House Joint Resolution 767.
Representative White moves to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 832 for House Joint Resolution 767. Properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur in SJR 832.
Representative White moves to concur. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative White renews his motion. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. Chairman Clemens, you have a discussion point? Nope. All right. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 832, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 70, 16 nays, 2 present, unvoted.
House Joint Resolution 832, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare it concurred in without objection. Most read serious table. Bob, next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 766 by Chairman White and others, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Lauren Smith to the Public Charter School Commission. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Joint Resolutions on the desk.
Representative White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 833 for House Joint Resolution 766.
Representative White moves to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 833 for House Joint Resolution 766. Properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur with Senate Joint Resolution 833.
Representative White moves to concur. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative White renews his motion. Any discussion on the resolution? Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The concerns I have with this, I've got a lot of concerns, obviously, with the Public Charter School Commission and its role in usurping local authority. But I have a real concern with the conflict of interest of the people we're appointing to this commission who have an extensive background in charter schools and with organizations such as SCORE, that is the conduit for millions of dollars into the state of Tennessee to further privatize our public education system. So my question is, how is it appropriate for someone who is clearly going to be biased when reviewing appeals for charter school applications to appoint them to the Charter School Commission?
Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me answer that by this confirmation did go through House Education Administration Committee. There were no votes at that time. They were approved unanimously. But the Charter Commission is, first of all, charters are public schools. In 2002, the state of Tennessee created the charter schools. And when we created the Charter School Commission, it was to make sure that we approved only the best charter schools in our state. So we have a strong Charter School Commission. And with that, Mr. Speaker, any further questions?
Yes, sir. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I have a sincere concern with appointing people to these commissions that have a clear bias and background with this and the relationships they have with the money flowing into the state to push and expand charter schools across the state of Tennessee. I think this is an inherent conflict of interest. I think, when they are going to be tasked with reviewing these applications, and they are obviously pro-charter, I have a feeling more local governments decisions, the elected officials of local governments who have put a lot of time and effort into reviewing these applications and rejecting these applications are going to be overturned. And I would hate to see the state continue to overturn and usurp the decision-making authority of local governments because we have stacked a public charter school commission with individuals who have a clear agenda, both past, professionally, and present. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? I'm sure there is. We're on the board. We're voting on previous question. All those in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 69, 21
Previous
nays.
question prevails. We are voting. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 833 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Please take the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Aye, 65, 21 nays, 4 present, not voting.
Senate Joint Resolution 833 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare concurring without objection. Motion reads here is tabled. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 768 by Chair Lady Hazelwood and others, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Tom Griscom to the Public Charter School Commission. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Joint Resolutions on the desk.
Representative Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute SJR 834 for HJR 768.
Representative Hazelwood moves to substitute and form Senate Joint Resolution 834 for House Joint Resolution 768, probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur in SJR 834.
Representative Hazelwood moves to concur. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative Hazelwood renews her motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 834 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 71, 12 nays, 5 present, not voting.
Senate Joint Resolution 834 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare concurring without objection. The motion reads here is tabled. Representative Boyd, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know I'm out of order, Mr. Speaker, but I just wanted to welcome. We had some guests just enter the gallery, and we have Tristan Pope and the Watertown FFA. If you can make them feel welcome, folks.
Representative McCalman, you're recognized. Oh, Mr. Clerk, call up next bill.
House Joint Resolution 769 by Representative McCalman and others, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Stephen Smith to the State University Board of Middle Tennessee State University. Mr. Speaker, the SJR is on the desk.
Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute SJR 831 for HJR 769.
Representative McCalman moves to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 831 for House Joint Resolution 769, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur in SJR 831.
Representative McCalman moves to concur. Mr. Clerk, call the First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative McCalman renews the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 831 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 88, no nays, 2 present, not voting.
Senate Joint Resolution 831 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare concurring without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 771 by Representative Baum and others, a resolution to confirm the appointment of William S. Jones to the State University Board of Middle Tennessee State University. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Joint Resolution is on the desk.
Representative Baum, you're recognized.
I move to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 830 for House Joint Resolution 771.
Representative Baum moves to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 830 for House Joint Resolution 771. Properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Baum, you're recognized.
I move to concur with Senate Joint Resolution 830.
Representative Baum moves to concur. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative Baum renews his motion. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 830 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 88, no nays.
Senate Joint Resolution 830 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare concurred in without objection. Most reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1384 by Chairman Reagan and others, relative to aggravated prostitution. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 181.
Chairman Reagan moves to substitute and conform Senate Bill 181. Properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 181 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Reagan moves passage of Senate Bill 181 on third and final consideration. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Criminal Justice Committee Amendment number 1. Mr. Speaker, it's the same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Holsey, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as the Senate amendment. Move to withdraw.
Without objection. Committee Amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is about remedying as much as possible the negatives and the wrongs done by modern day slavery. We euphemistically call modern day slavery human trafficking. This bill is about helping those who have been trafficked for whatever reason against their will, usually through the threat of force, even death, into the world of prostitution. Simply stated, this bill makes past convictions of aggravated prostitution eligible for expunction, and it allows for individuals with past convictions to request a termination of the registration from the sex offenders registry list with a TBI under certain conditions. They must have had a clean record for over a year and established that they have good cause. With that, colleagues, I sincerely ask that you support this bill in recognition of the fact that we owe it to these people, mostly women, but also some young men who have been forced into this terrible event, if you will, and stand for eliminating slavery as much as we can. With that, I renew my motion.
Chairman Reagan renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 181 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays, 1 present, not voting.
Senate Bill 181 having received constitutional majority, everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1625 by Chairman Zachary and others, relative to duties required of mental health professionals.
Chairman Zachary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have passage of House Bill 1625 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Zachary moves passage. Probably second. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Health Committee Amendment number 1.
Vice Chairman Leatherwood, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for further explanation.
Vice Chairman Leatherwood moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the committee amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of committee amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt the next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Zachary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, you'll recognize this piece of legislation. We passed this during the special session. The other chamber chose not to work that week, so we're here again, passing this through committee and now back on the House floor. This will strengthen duty to warn, provide some clarity, and ensures that mental health practitioners do not have to call law enforcement when a patient makes a threat to them. With that explanation, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Zachary renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1625 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 79, 7 ayes, 3 present, not voted.
House Bill 1625 having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed without objection. The motion reads serious table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1716 by Representative Gillespie relative to judicial commissioners.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage on HB 1716 on third and final consideration.
Representative Gillespie moves passage. Party Secretary, Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Civil Justice Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Farmer, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill and move to adopt and defer to sponsor for further explanation. Thank you.
Chairman Farmer moves adoption of committee amendment number 1. Probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of committee amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt the next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
No further amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what this does is it requires a county with more than one general sessions judge, the management and supervision of any judicial commissioners to rotate between the general session judges and the county on an annual basis. And with that, I renew my motion.
Representative Gillespie renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you. And to the sponsor, please explain why we need this bill.
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, so this just adds another layer of accountability to our judicial commissioners and those in charge of them. I think it's fair that the same person should not be in charge the entire time, and this is what this changes.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. I haven't talked to all of my judges, but I did text a couple, and no one will admit that they asked for this. So what's the genesis of this bill?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, this is an accountability piece of legislation. It holds people accountable, and I believe that is fair for us all.
Representative Hardaway.
So shouldn't the judges who know each other and their administrative capacity for each of them, shouldn't they make the determination of who they want to serve as the administrative judge? If it's going to rotate, don't we take the risk of having an unqualified administrator in charge?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. All this does is says that in a county that has more than one general sessions judge that's responsible for the oversight of their judicial commissioners, that be rotated on a yearly basis. There's nothing about that. That's simply what this bill does. And I renew my motion.
Representative Hardaway.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding. So the rotation means that they just have to vote on it every year?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've stated, what this does is says that if you have a county with more than one general session judge and they have oversight of their judicial commissioners, then every year it rotates.
Representative Hardaway.
All right, I'm trying to just ask simple questions. Would the same judge be able to be voted on and serve 2 years in a row?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to read the bill here. In a county with more than one general session judge, the management and supervision of any judicial commissioners appointed pursuant to this section must rotate between the general session judge in the county on an annual basis. In a county with more than one general sessions judge, the management and supervision of any judicial commissioner appointed pursuant to this part must rotate between the general sessions judges in the county on an annual basis. This act takes effect upon becoming law, the public welfare requiring it.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'm not going to ask any more questions. My position is simply that the judges are best equipped on the method, the procedures, the process by which they elect their administrators from their ranks. And with that, thank you for engaging, sir.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to vote for this bill, but I find it very troubling that the sponsor cannot answer basic questions about his legislation and seeks to read the bill to deflect. So I want to ask a few questions as well. You answer, this is about accountability. Can you define, without reading the bill, without reading whatever talking points you got from whoever gave you this bill, what problem does this solve? Representative Gillespie.
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this solves is right now where I live and what my constituents are telling me and asking and begging me is there is little to no accountability from the judge that is currently supervising our judicial commissioners. This is simply just allowing the same person to not be in charge for an 8-year period. It changes it every year.
Representative Jones.
How does rotating it ensure accountability? It's like, say we rotated the speaker, would that make the speaker more accountable? I don't know. How does rotating who's in charge of this more accountable? Can you explain this?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you for your comments. I renew my motion.
Representative Jones.
So the sponsor of this bill cannot answer how simply playing musical chairs is going to enforce accountability. And so let's be real. When we have the honor of presenting legislation for this body, we should know what our legislation is doing. Some of these legislation that I've been seeing today can be emails. We don't need to have laws for this. We can send an email. And so if there is a point to say we want to rotate and play musical chairs with the presiding judge, maybe we should ask them. I don't think any of the judges in my county have asked for this. And so this is an attack on the judiciary system, which is a separate co-equal branch of government. And this is an attempt to try and attack the judicial branch, and it doesn't solve any issues. So if this is good for the judicial branch, I hope that we can also bring a bill to rotate who's in charge of this legislature so that we can have deeper accountability as well.
Representative Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? We'll vote. All those in favor of previous question, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 71, 20 nays.
Previous question prevails. We are voting. All those in favor of House Bill 1716 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 65, 19 nays, 3 present, not voting.
House Bill 1716 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Most reconsidered table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that completes the regular calendar.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Representative Martin of Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to withdraw HB 2575 from committee and the House.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Representative Raper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to withdraw House Bills 256, 648, 1412, and 2476 from the committee in the House.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. Representative Brickton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to withdraw House Bill 1042 from the committee and the House.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to withdraw House Bill 2520 from the committee and the House.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consulting with the minority leader, I move that the rules be suspended for immediate introduction in consideration of HJR number 963.
Mr. Clerk, read the caption.
House Joint Resolution 963 by Leader Lambert and others, a resolution honoring and commending Tennesseans for their opposition to and condemnation of neo-Nazism and the National Socialist Movement.
You've heard the caption. Is there any objections? Without objection, the rules are suspended. Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move adoption of HJR number 963 and ask that the clerk read the resolution.
Leader Lambert moves adoption of House Joint Resolution 963, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, please read the resolution.
A resolution honoring and commending Tennesseans for their opposition to and condemnation of neo-Nazism and the National Socialist Movement. Whereas God is the creator of all humans and races, and whereas racism and hatred in any form are repugnant and sinful, and whereas there's an intentional effort by neo-Nazis to ignite racial animosity and divide neighbors, friends, and communities by promoting a message of hatred and ethnic cleansing, and whereas neo-Nazis wish to further spread a dangerous ideology rooted in Holocaust-era fascist movements and socialism through their affiliation with the National Socialist Movement, and whereas neo-Nazis have incited violence and used tactics to terrorize others on the basis of their race, ethnicity, or religion, and whereas Tennesseans have recognized that neo-Nazi groups promote an ideology in conflict with our nation's bedrock principles of liberty and justice for all, and whereas the people of Tennessee have rejected neo-Nazism and those who promote anti-Semitism, xenophobia, discrimination, and racial intolerance in all forms, and whereas Tennesseans exemplify what it means to love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, therefore, we are resolved by the House of Representatives of the 113th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, the Senate concurring, that we honor and commend Tennesseans for their strong opposition to and unequivocal condemnation of neo-Nazism and the National Socialist Movement, and praise them for rejecting and repudiating neo-Nazism's virulent hatred of our fellow human beings on the basis of their race, ethnicity, or religion.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consulting with the minority leadership, I move that all those voted in favor be added as co-prime sponsors.
Without objection, exclusion is duly noted. All right, we're on discussion. Any discussion? Representative Jones. Representative McKenzie. No, we're on discussing of the resolution. All right, no discussion. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Joint Resolution 963 say aye. Let's put it on the board. All those who vote for House Joint Resolution 963 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Let the journal reflect Representative Gillespie's excused. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, no nays.
I hereby declare it adopted without objection. Most weeks here is tabled. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that HJR number 859 be heard in Finance Subcommittee this week.
For the motion, any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that House Bills 1862 and 1863 be heard in the Government Operations Committee next week.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the request of the sponsor of the legislation, I move that HJR number 954 be referred to Calendar and Rules Committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, we have a message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I'm directed to return to the House Bill 1648, substituted for the Senate bill on the same subject, amended and passed by the Senate.
Monday's message calendar. Pursuant to Rule number 52, I name Representative Burkhart as the first prime sponsor of House Bill 108. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Announcements.
Announcements. Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, thank you for turning in your amendments for the transportation omnibus bills.
We've had several, but let me tell you, for those who may want to name a bridge or road or have a specially licensed plate, the deadline is February 29th at the end of the business day. That's next Friday or Thursday. Thank you.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, the Joint Government Operations Committee will meet this Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning in House Hearing Room 1 for our monthly rule review meeting. Again, that's this Monday at 10 o'clock in House Hearing Room 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Whitson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you want your bill to be heard in Transportation Subcommittee, please file it by 6 March. Thank you.
Representative Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to announce that the final calendar for Corrections Subcommittee will be March 12th. So get your bills on notice.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with a deep and heavy heart that I ask you all to rise. In memory of Bob Booker. Bob Booker was an outstanding individual, the first African-American elected to this body from Knox County, worked for 3 mayors during his time as executive assistant. He led sit-ins during his time at Knoxville College. He wrote a weekly article on history for the Knoxville News Sentinel that folks just really were engaged with, and had a weekly radio show there where he played vinyl and wax. He had the oldies but goodie show. But more than that, he was the inaugural executive director of the Beck Cultural Enrichment Center there in Knoxville, and just was a mountain of a man. He was the living legacy last year. Wanted to come, was in decent health, but his health failed. So just ask for a moment of silence as we honor a truly great American, Robert J. Booker. Thank you.
Chairman Holzapfel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just as a reminder, also, Department and Agency Subcommittee has set their alcohol calendar for March 6th, Wednesday, and all related legislation needs to be put on notice by Wednesday, February 28th at 3:30. And our famous omnibus bill, HB 1937, will be heard on March 6th. Last call for amendments is Tuesday, March 5th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Criminal Justice Subcommittee will have an animal cruelty calendar on Tuesday, March the 19th of this year. The deadline for putting those bills on notice will be March 13th. Thank you.
Chair Lady Hazelwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a reminder that Finance will recommence our budget hearings Monday at 9 o'clock. Monday at 9. Thank you.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was almost remiss in wishing Mr. Jim Henry of Kingston a happy birthday today.
Thank you. Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm sorry for making this announcement so late, but one of our ministers in my church just passed this week, Minister Faye Lynch. And if you could, she's a wonderful person. And if you could just, we'll give her a moment of silence. I appreciate it. Amen. Thank you.
Representative Towns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some of the members were asking me, when was this picture that was distributed to them with their likeness on it? When was it taken? The year is 2018. 2018, members. 218. That was Beth Hartwell's last year. So 218. Thank you.
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, for your listening pleasure, next Tuesday night at the TPAC, we do have the Capitol Jam. I will tell you, some of your colleagues will impress you with their talent. We also have several of our staff members that will impress you with their talent. Some of us will not impress you, but you will be entertained nonetheless. Hope to see you at TPAC 5:30 next Tuesday night.
Half of Coach for Ties for Teen interns. Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you. I would like everyone to rise in a moment of silence for, I lost a 14-year-old girl in our district on the 15th of February. Her parents are burying her today. She died of the flu and strep throat. It's just a strange thing. Her father is head of operations for the football program at East Tennessee State University. Mother is a teacher at Indian Trail Middle School. My heart grieves for all of them. So I just ask for a moment of silence for Olivia Blackburn. Thank you.
Representative Capley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to wish a fellow I go to church with a happy birthday, Mr. Kelvin Runyons. Happy birthday, Kelvin.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call.
Roll call. Ms. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Speaker, 87 members present.
Next order, Ms. Clerk.
That completes the regular order, Mr. Speaker.
Leader Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until 4 p.m. on Monday, February 26, 2024.
Without objection, the House stands in recess till 4 p.m. on Monday, February 26, 2024.